Conservatively speaking, there are approximately 2 million reviews on the Halios Seaforth on the internet, and the Pastel Blue in particular. It's possibly the most impressive, true, meaning run by one guy, microbrand in the world. So is there room for one more video on this? Well, I think so. This is the third Halios watch that I've owned, so I'll bring to you the unique perspective of an owner. It's not sponsored, borrowed or donated, so I can say whatever I want. That said, I come at this from a watch enthusiast perspective that also happens to have a decades-long love of photography, and I honestly can't think of a better model. Every Halios review plays to the same tune. They are hard to impossible to obtain, and that is discouraging. However, I'd argue that this does not apply to this one at all. Let me explain. Typically, I'd prefer to build up the visuals here before going straight for the jugular. And don't worry, I'll cover the sizes, lume and all that stuff soon. But if you're here, I'm almost certain that this is not the first time you've come across this watch. I would love a comment and please subscribe if you find this video interesting. So how could I possibly claim that one of the most attractive and desirable models from Halios, that also happens to be well and truly discontinued and sold out, is obtainable? Well, much like the other models from the brand, they sell on the second-hand market for significantly more than what they sold for when new. But I'd argue that they're still very good value. Let's say that you're willing to spend about $2,000, which is approximately twice as much as they sold for. Then, after a small amount of Googling, you'll be able to find one pretty quickly. But what if you're not willing to risk it and buy from eBay, Chrono24, Reddit or any of those options, which is honestly completely understandable? My advice is to find a group of like-minded individuals that buy and trade based on reputation. Personally, I think Facebook is an absolute cancer on our society, but the reality is that where I live in Australia, there are some excellent buy, sell, swap groups, and they tend to be on Facebook. What's so good about those is that they self-police to a certain extent. Meaning, if a seller or buyer doesn't have recommendations from others, they will need to build up trust before they transact. They are also overseen by administrators that will gladly kick you out if you break the rules. Rules that are basically just about being a good human. So in my particular case, a member had a well looked after Pastel Blue Seaforth on sale for the sum of 1,600 Australian dollars. After some negotiating, a deal was had and we're still in touch today. And I struggle to think of a better way to obtain one of your dream watches than this. But obviously second to buying a new watch from an authorised dealer. Okay, so now we've established that you can get one and there are some reliable sources out there. Then the question is, should you? I admired the Pastel Blue Seaforth from a distance for years and I never really thought I'd be able to pull the trigger. So when one finally came up, yep, I did hesitate for a second on the price. What worked for me was comparing the cost to what else I could get at the same price that had the same proven reputation and importantly, solid build quality. Where I live, Oris, Longines, Zin are all closer to $3,000, so they're out of contention. That leaves other microbrands such as Baltic, Oleg & Weiss, and even a lot of Seikos. Now for me, none of those are as much fun as the Seaforth, and they will certainly not hold their value, and are even less likely to increase in value. That last point is not important to me, but holding value is. Having never actually held the original Seaforth in my hand, it was quite exciting to open the parcel when it arrived. Initial impressions are that Jason at Halios have certainly upped his case game in the latter years, since this is delivered in a simple pouch. Nothing wrong with that, I suppose, but the other passport style wallets that I've had for the other models are really good. That aside, the watch certainly does not disappoint. And I hope you agree from the footage so far. That pastel blue is super bright and beautiful, and that bezel is, to my eyes at least, just absolutely gorgeous. So first a word on sizes. I measured a diameter, not including the crown and the crown guards, at just above 40mm. Including that eye-catching box sapphire crystal, we're looking at 12.3mm thick. The lug to lug is about 46.7mm. In short, this will fit almost any size wrist, and even on my 19cm wrist, which is slightly larger than most, it looks good. So once you can stop admiring this blue colour, we can find the Halios Seaforth word mark at just under 12 and automatic at the 6th position. The applied indices appear to be a very dark grey or black and have a good amount of lume on them, but more on that a bit later. There are probably only 2 concerns for me and my only 2 minor complaints. First, the 2 bars at 12. These were changed at some point to a simple triangle. Check out the written review on my website for the bronze version and you can see why. After an unhealthy amount of lube scrutiny, they actually do seem to be aligned, but the distortion of the crystal does make them look off angle from an off angle. It takes more than a casual glance to see this, and that is a small thing, and I do actually prefer the 2 bars look over the triangle, so as I'm saying this, I'm also telling myself to shut up about it. 2. The date complication. Having a blue match date window is very attractive, but can I see what the date is? Absolutely not. I know that Jason hated the ghost position on the early models that had no date, so at least there is no ghostly position anymore. I know people hate the magnification on Rolex date complications, but they certainly make sense as we age and our eyesight deteriorates. Had I had an option of no date model, I would have gone with that, but since it's pretty well hidden and it also doesn't bother me that much. The lume is another thing that certainly got way better by the time my bronze model was released. It's not bad at all, but it's also not amazing. It's simply good enough. The box crystal is gorgeous. I love it. There's a small amount of distortion, but the main point is how it catches the light on my wrist. It certainly stands out both figuratively and physically. The bezel, now that's a story. It's unlike anything else I've ever handled. It feels more like a combination to a safe than a watch bezel. Turning it quickly seemed to almost have a default to 60 click feel, but it's definitely 120. Also, the fact that you can track another time zone by moving the hour markers to the position of the hour hand is actually quite useful. It is very thin, but it sticks out ever so slightly over the case, so gripping it, it's no problem. The crown and crown guard is one of my favourite of any watch ever. Halios nails this. Just look at this. The polished angle on the lugs is gorgeous, and there are some interesting lines going on here where the lugs transition to the crown guards. This is as good of a time as any to point out that there is one guy behind this. One guy. Can you imagine how much effort, prototyping and modelling, not to mention lost sleep, would have been involved in getting these details right? I mean, not even a massive corporation like for instance Apple can release hardware that is free from flaws. And there are literally thousands of people involved there. It really is astonishing to me that this is even achievable by, again, one guy in Vancouver. The back is plain with the model name, and I believe this screw-in case covers an ETA movement. One thing to highlight here, again this is a micro brand that is gutsy enough to not shout on the dial about its 200 meter water resistance. Give me one large brand with a marketing department that is that brave. Finally, there is a black rubber strap included and also a matching blue canvas strap. I found that to be slight pastel blue overload, and it is a little tricky to find the right combination for this watch. I eventually settled on the dark blue Erica MN strap, which is comfortable and I think suits it. I'll leave a link to that in the description if you're interested. So to wrap up here, I guess this did turn into a bit of a love letter to this watch, but I really think it is stunning. The influences are obvious, but it has its own unique style, and what an achievement it is for Halios. If you follow the brand, there are plenty of other stunning pieces launched, and you can obtain them with a little patience. If you made it to the end of my ramblings here, then thank you. If you found this useful, then please share your thoughts, subscribe if you want to, and share my videos with your friends if you want to. This is a labor of love for me, not money. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.